Welcome to Off the Wall. Our guest today, it's a privilege to have with us the ambassador of Armenia to Cyprus, Greece, and Albania, His Excellency, Mr. T.Mkrtchyan. His visit to Cyprus coincides with a change of status, which doesn't happen very often. We are very pleased to be informed that Armenia will be appointing a new and for the first time a resident ambassador to Cyprus. So Ambassador T.Mkrtchyan will remain resident in Athens with the responsibilities covering Greece and Albania. Mr. T.Mkrtchyan, welcome back.
Thank you very much, Masis, for hosting me again.
Nice to see you again. Do tell us, we have a new ambassador for Cyprus. For Cyprus, this is a historic event, and we will be seeing a fresh face, Mrs. T.Mkrtchyan, who I understand is a career diplomat, with the past few years working as head of public diplomacy in the foreign ministry in Yerevan. In addition to other diplomatic postings that she's had in the past. So considering that you are leaving your Cyprus post and focusing more on Greece, Albania, what do you think this could mean for Cyprus, Armenia?
Let me emphasize that this is a long overdue development, actually. Because we have been talking about or discussing about the necessity of Armenia's presence in Cyprus on an ambassadorial position with an embassy, resident embassy, for 3 decades.
Yes.
A lot of my colleagues in the ministry, even long before I was a member of the diplomatic community in Armenia, or a member of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs staff, long before that, many of my colleagues had been discussing and talking about the necessity of Armenia having an embassy, residence embassy in Cyprus. And I know that this has been talk in the corridors of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Cyprus as well, regarding reciprocation in Armenia. And fortunately, over the last few years, the recent years, these talks were accelerated and got materialized thanks to the agreement between the two ministers of foreign affairs of Cyprus and Armenia. And I'm very happy that I also was as much contributing to this as possible. And it happened. Cyprus appointed an ambassador who has been in Armenia for already, I think, 4 or 5 months.
Mr. Mavros was appointed September, if I'm not mistaken.
Exactly.
And then
and just recently, my colleague, career diplomat, a friend, Ms. Torgomyan, she was appointed as ambassador to Cyprus, and she'll be arriving, I think, in the coming few weeks. And she will proceed from where we have, in a way, left our work, but on a new, on a new basis, completely fresh basis, with a different status, a much more enhanced status, and this was a necessity. This was a necessity, as I say, long overdue. Cyprus has been a very close friend of Armenia and Armenians for centuries. And of course, it was much expected by everybody in Cyprus and in Armenia that this development would be materialized.
Yes, well, on a practical sense, there will be, I wouldn't say rapid developments, but we will see things moving faster because having a resident ambassador, you can get things done much faster and going straight to the source.
Certainly.
And Cyprus being, as well as Greece, where I see that you're very, very active in the Greek political, cultural, and economic scene. Does this also mean that the already warm and close relations between Cyprus and Armenia will be enhanced even further, considering that both through your experience in Greece, your previous experience in the Baltics, and now in Cyprus with a new ambassador, we will see even stronger relations, not only Armenia-Cyprus, but Armenia-EU.
Very interesting question and very important, actually, because Armenia and Armenian-European relations right now are on an historic height, like top level of relations. Never has in the past the level of our relations been so intense and so close, and on a qualitatively, definitely on a very, very high level. On various levels, the developments have matured. Of course, on the political level, it's very important. We have been actively engaged in our cooperation with the EU within the frames of CEPA, the Comprehensive Enhanced Partnership Agreement, which was the framework of our cooperation. But now we are talking already about enhancing this engagement with the new partnership agreement, which has been negotiated.
Yes.
Having said that, we should also emphasize a few other developments that have happened over the past few years or few months. Very important was, for example, the ratification of Rome Statute, or the Europol or Eurojust agreements. Also, the common area of Armenia's joining of the common aviation area.
These are all part of reforms that are sort of requested or demanded by
Armenia's
EU.
been awarded or sort of granted with the European Peace Facility. Very important. Armenia having European EU mission of Armenia monitoring the area, the border areas with Azerbaijan, very important, which has been prolonged for another 2 years. Just recently it was done, and despite the somewhat not very much encouraging approach of Azerbaijan, EU had a united position on this, and we have this mission being prolonged. Its mission, which is of utmost importance in terms of also security for Armenia. So all of these are developments which are impossible not to take into account. And of course, the launch of the visa liberalization VLD, the process, which hopefully will mature. I mean, with the negotiations are to be conducted in the coming months, years, maybe. But hopefully, the sooner the better, because this will immensely contribute to the people contact between Armenia and the EU. So all of these are extremely important. This on the political level, there is no doubt that Armenia has enhanced its cooperation with the EU to a new level. But also, let's take into account what has been happening, what has been the view of the society. The various surveys that have been conducted in Armenia over the past several years indicate that the Armenian society is very much proving or showing it's the country's not moving into European direction, but getting closer to Europe, let's say, adhering to European values
and
institutions, reforms. So this is a very clear, very important message, which was reflected in the past few months. There was a civilian initiative launched in Armenia about suggesting the government to launch a process of Armenia's membership in the EU. So the civilian initiative got more than needed signatures. So I think there was a need for 50,000 signatures, but they got within a very short period 60,000, and this proposal was tabled to the government. The government discussed and approved. And apparently it was sent to the parliament for discussion. And just 2 days ago, the parliament, in its first reading, approved this resolution about initiative. For Armenia's for the start of the process of Armenia's membership to the EU. Of course, this entails a lot of work, a lot of homework, a lot of bureaucracy. But who says that everything is going to be easy? Nobody says that it's going to be easy. We have to pass this route, as difficult as it may be. But I think this is for the welfare of Armenians and the welfare and prosperity, future prosperity of Armenia in general. So these are the developments that we need to take into account. These are very important developments. And of course, I completely agree with you that our bilateral relations between Armenia and Cyprus and Armenia and Greece are extremely important in the dynamic processes taking place in the relations between Armenia and the EU, because EU and Greece and Cyprus are essential partners of Armenia in the EU, very important partners, big supporters of Armenia in all discussions related to Armenia within this institution.
Well, of all your meetings in Cyprus, I'm sure that you've always received a warm welcome, almost brotherly, both on a political and diplomatic level. What do you take away from your, shall we say, past responsibility out of Cyprus? It's not just handshakes and a pat on the back. I'm sure there has been a lot of contribution, a lot of direction, a lot of assistance, helping in diplomatic and other channels.
As I said, Cyprus has been of immense support to Armenia. In our relations, we have never encountered the word no. So, and this has been reciprocated, and Armenia has been always standing by Cyprus, be that on bilateral or on international multilateral formats, discussions related and topics related to Cyprus. So I had already meetings with the president of Cyprus, the foreign minister of Cyprus, the permanent secretary of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and the speaker, the president of the House of Representatives, as well as the chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee, and who is also the head of the Armenia-Cyprus Friendship Committee. And also I had one interesting meeting with the Cyprus Institute, which I will propose the Armenians to investigate more in terms of enhancing cooperation in the scientific field with Cyprus. So in all those meetings, what I can underline as running as a red line was that Cyprus is encouraging Armenia's reforms agenda, is standing by Armenia's adherence to peaceful development of the region of the South Caucasus, is supporting its initiatives, including its initiative of, for example, the Crossroads of Peace. But not only the Crossroads of Peace. The Armenia's stance is very much a constructive stance vis-a-vis its neighbors. Is welcomed by the Cypriot colleagues. Ideally, we would imagine that our relations are of strategic partnership level. But this needs to be materialized in the future. In terms of further development of certain areas. There is a lot of very constructive and healthy dialogue in the sphere of defense sectors, and I'm very proud about that. I'm very, very glad to have contributed in a way to this process, also linking with Greece. So there has been trilateral cooperation in the defense sector: Cyprus, Greece, Armenia, and we probably the defense sector cooperation needs to be taken as an example of in terms of its action plans, annual meetings, regular consultations, very, very intense engagement. This could be taken as an example of and probably projected into other areas, some other areas where we need to work intensely, be that tourism, in which there is a lot of development, by the way.
Recently, we've seen a lot of people just choosing now Yerevan as a destination of choice,
That's true.
as opposed to just friends or relatives. Yes.
That's true. Be that in academic and scientific research cooperation, a lot of huge potential.
Cultural.
We see cultural, of course, cooperation. New technologies. This is something that Cyprus is priding itself in, and also Armenia is very much proud of its achievements in this sphere. So we have a lot that can be that needs to be materialized concretely in terms of meetings, regular meetings, cooperation, action plans, checking of those, the implementation processes, etc. So this needs to be concretely done, as it is done, as I said, in the sector of the defense.
Okay. Well, you also mentioned Crossroads of Peace. That's an interesting initiative. However, it could also be considered ironic in the sense that a state in the Caucasus, which is quite fragile, is talking about crossroads of peace. The same way that Cyprus happens to be in the Eastern Mediterranean. Cyprus has its own issues. However, Cyprus is also located in a very volatile region in itself. So can you very briefly just tell us about the philosophy behind the crossroads of peace?
This idea, the idea of the project of Crossroads of Peace, was proposed by the Prime Minister of Armenia in Tbilisi in October in 2023. In Tbilisi.
Yeah.
There was a forum, Tbilisi Silk Road Forum, and the Armenian Prime Minister made such a proposal. So the philosophy of this project is that the region, instead of being a hotbed of conflicts, disagreements, wars, and suffering, has the potential of becoming a region, an area, a zone of cooperation, economic cooperation, peaceful engagement, opening of transport routes, be these railways, pipelines, electricity lines, all the the entire communication roads that are running through in the region are basically intersecting in Armenia. Armenia is in the in the center of the region, and artificially circumventing Armenia just because there are some disagreements, or let's say, or hostility towards Armenia, is not helping at all in making the region something of a peace or cooperation. Therefore, Armenia's proposal is to follow this trajectory of cooperation, economic cooperation, which would also contribute largely to peaceful understanding between the countries and cooperation between the countries. Now, Armenia has no disagreements or problems with its two neighbors, with Iran and Georgia. We have had traditionally very close relationships, and the borders are still continuing to be closed with Turkey, and borders with Azerbaijan need to be still fully demarcated, and peace agreement needs to be signed.
Where are we on that Armenia-Azerbaijan talks?
So I'll jump on that.
Yeah.
So Armenia proposes that let's welcome this initiative, the Crossroads of Peace, and contribute to not only the regional development, but it will become sort of a juncture for the bigger international crossroads. So running from further east, coming from India, from China, all the way going to the west through the Caucasus region, to the west, to Europe or to the Mediterranean, and from the south, when we are talking about the Gulf, Persian Gulf countries, running all the way to the north, to Europe or to Russia, So through Georgia, through Armenia and Georgia, of course, we're talking about this line.
Yes.
So the potentials of the crossroads, if they are realized, if they are embraced, if the idea is embraced by all countries, are immense.
Yes.
Thankfully, there has been a very much, there has been a lot of positive sort of reaction to it, including, by the way, from Greece and Cyprus.
Yes.
And Georgia and Iran have also reacted positively. So, so we need to ultimately persuade our colleagues especially in the east, and of course Turkey can be of utmost importance in this. You know, once everybody agrees, this will be a great idea which can be implemented. But let's see how we progress in terms of our of the peace agreement that which is being negotiated between Armenia and Azerbaijan, as you asked now. So I will immediately jump on that. Regarding the peace agreement, what we have right now is that there is apparently a draft agreement which has been negotiated over the past few years. 15 articles out of 17, if I'm not mistaken, they have been agreed upon. 2 articles are not yet finalized. Armenia has sent its version of these articles to Azerbaijan a couple of months ago. We haven't had yet answers from Azerbaijan. Yeah. So this is where we stand roughly. Of course, also very important is that the delimitation and demarcation commissions from both sides, from Armenia and Azerbaijan, they are meeting, and there is a work going on in this sphere. A lot needs to be done because only a very small part of the border has been demarcated in the northeastern part. So.
Plus, there is also the presence, as you mentioned earlier, of EU observers.
Which
contributes to giving
but unfortunately,
a general positive image.
Yes, it does. But unfortunately, we have heard from Azerbaijani side sometimes very, aggressive and hostile reaction to this mission, which raises eyebrows. Because because clearly, recently the Prime Minister of Armenia wrote an article, and one of the questions that he posed to himself and then answers, is Armenia going to attack Azerbaijan?
Yes.
Of course not.
Yes.
Of course not. No one, reasonable can even think that Armenia would be attacking Azerbaijan. And the Azeri attitude of questioning European missions, observers missions, existence within the territory of Armenia is raising a lot of questions, because the mission is not doing anything against Azerbaijan. The mission is simply contributing to the safety and security of the borders between Armenia and Azerbaijan. They are neutral. They are not working for Armenia or for Azerbaijan or against Armenia or against.
Exactly.
So there is not that exclusivist agenda. It's rather engaging, and we would have it would have been better if there was a similar mission, for example, in Azerbaijan. And initially, as much, if I'm not mistaken, Azerbaijan, right in the beginning, Azerbaijan agreed to hosting such a mission in 2022 when it was proposed, but then it backtracked.
Yeah.
But this is not the most important thing. The most important thing is the political will.
Yes.
Confidence
building.
Yes. Whether Azerbaijan will find in itself strength enough to move forward, normalize relations with Armenia, sign the peace agreement, put aside its aggressive, hostile rhetoric. Very much worrying, because especially since the New Year and the New Year message of the president, and then later on in his interview to media, we heard very, very alarming.
Yes.
Once again, actually, because for some time there was more or less refrained, language vis-a-vis Armenia, but then once again we heard very hostile and aggressive rhetoric with territorial claims towards Armenia, questioning Armenia's integrity and sovereignty and territorial integrity, and interpreting historical events in their very imaginative way,
Yes.
completely unconnected or disconnected from the realities.
It's not constructive.
And
It's not constructive.
yes, history.
Yeah.
So this kind of rhetoric and constantly threatening Armenia is not constructive. It's not going to help.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't choose neighbors. You have the neighbors. You have to coexist and cooperate. And Armenia's stance is not to reciprocate in terms of these polemics, not to counter argue that there are so many counter arguments that can be put forward we can have a series of such podcasts, and we won't finish with that in terms of discussing how Azerbaijan was originated and how it developed, etc. But this is not our business. The task of the diplomats and the governments is to establish relations and to cooperate to the welfare of the peoples.
Yes.
And not to aggravate their suffering, and not to deteriorate their conditions, but to ameliorate their conditions.
Yes.
This is the task of every government.
Yes.
Not to ensure its longevity.
Yes.
Thanks to the suffering of the people.
Yes.
Thanks to the nationalistic feelings.
Yes. Yes.
So Armenia's government position is to adhere to the peace agenda, as much as possible. Of course, in peace you don't have. It's like tango, so you have to have a partner to dance with. If the other side is constantly rebuffing, slapping, trying to humiliate, you won't move. You won't move much ahead. So we have to be cautious also. And this is another, related to this last question that you raised, because Azerbaijan has been questioning Armenia's defense reforms. Questioning that Armenia doesn't have the right to buy any types of weapons. And Armenia has, first of all, we have been implementing defense reforms, and
it has every sovereign right on its own territory.
It's every country's leadership's right and duty is to make sure that the security of its own people is guaranteed, is ensured. Exactly. And for that purpose, acquisition or purchasing of any defensive systems or capacities is an it's an ingrained right of every country. So questioning that right, calling that Armenia should be, or appealing that Armenia should be disarmed. Then there was a phrase that familiar to many ears in Europe, that Armenia should be denazified, as if Armenia's statehood is ingrained in Nazism. These are very, very concerning comments, and I hope those who make such comments don't believe in those comments. So it's our right, Armenia's right, of course, and duty to be as resilient as possible, and this is normal. And no one is, for example, we are not raising the question why has Azerbaijan since 2020 been arming itself in very accelerated mode, acquiring a lot of weaponry, a very advanced offensive weaponry from around the world, and not from one direction, and continuously and consistently. Against whom and why? And if you are doing that, why are you then questioning if the other side is trying to make sure that its survival is not questioned? So this is simple logic,
well, it has to show signs of goodwill, such as the ongoing case of Armenians who are still held captive and on trial in Baku, captive from Nagorno-Karabakh. And that has to be shown to the world, whether it's in a fair and transparent way, in order for Azerbaijan to show some goodwill towards world public opinion.
The world is witnessing what's happening in Baku. We're trying not to, with our statements, not to make the plight of the prisoners worse. And this is what has become an issue in the Armenian internal political discussion into which I don't want to get engaged in. But everybody sees that the situation is getting worse and worse. These are fake trials.
Yeah.
And hopefully they will be ended as soon as possible. And the detainees, the prisoners, will be returned as soon as possible also. We see that there is a lot of suffering in their faces, in their condition. It's very, even if unarmed eye, you can see what's going on. Yeah. Unfortunately, we can also we know what's going on with the Armenian Christian heritage in Nagorno-Karabakh. This is also something extremely worrying.
Yes.
With UNESCO having no access to these areas, and this vandalism is not going to help anyone. I mean, the Azeris as well. I mean, in the long term, it's not going to help at all.
Yes. So goodwill gestures have to come from that side on a diplomatic, legal, and so many other levels.
Absolutely. I mean, and Armenia is extending its hands of cooperation, is trying to, not to exclude on any topic. All topics are being discussed. Every topic is being discussed, and we are not running away from any conversation on this topic. Simply, not everything can be publicized, and not everything needs to be, sent to the press.
Yes.
Including in the case of the prisoners as well as the cultural heritage. So these topics are discussed, but it's another matter how successful or how impactful these discussions are. Because
so this also shows the necessity of how much not only Armenia but in general the Caucasus need to have peace. Peace has to become priority, and to move away from hostilities in general, not just small skirmishes or events or on a diplomatic or political level. A general concept of peace in order for the whole area, as you mentioned earlier, for the whole region to move forward.
Sure. I mean, this zero-sum mentality that my opponent's loss is my victory, which has been dominating the political mindset of some of the leaders in our region, needs to be erased.
Yeah.
And, we need to do everything that a win-win situation would lead to a win-win game for everybody. We have been suffering. We have been seeing suffering for a very, very long time. We can discuss the sufferings. These sufferings are still going on. There are still more than 120,000 Nagorno-Karabakh Armenians, refugees in Armenia. So it's, these are topics that need to be, of course, discussed as well.
Yeah.
But in an engaging manner.
Yeah.
And with the hope that we can reach some sort of an arrangement.
Yes.
Without undermining each other constantly and without threatening at least our mutual existence. From the Armenian side, there is no such threat against Azerbaijan.
Exactly.
So let's be clear about that.
Exactly.
So what we need to do is to bring Azerbaijan more to a constructive field.
Yes. So 50% of the work of building peace has been achieved or is on that path. It's just that the whole region has to adopt the concepts of peace, goodwill, and confidence building.
Most of the agreement that we're talking about, the peace agreement between Armenia and Azerbaijan, I mean, most of the articles have been agreed upon.
Yeah.
So it's not, if we're talking, factually, so it's not 50%, it's even 90% of the text has been agreed upon.
Yes.
So, and Armenia was proposing, or is proposing, still proposing, let's sign the agreement as on the basis of the agreed upon articles.
Yeah.
But Azerbaijan is not up to that. So it hasn't yet is not agreeing to this proposal and is trying to drag on as much as possible.
Yes.
Let's see. I mean, it's an ongoing process. I cannot comment too much because I'm not involved in these negotiations personally.
But a lot of the burden falls on the growing diplomatic community of Armenia,
yes, sure,
which is what Armenia needs to have
Sure.
a stronger voice
Sure.
within the EU,
Yes.
within
So,
the rest of
yes,
the world.
and our task, as I mean, in this case, my task here is to enhance Armenia-Cyprus relations and to continue this work with the Greek side also, which has been progressing, and I hope that the results are good or will be good. Let's see. This is a continuous work, and at no point in our career we are saying that that's it, that's sufficient. It's never sufficient. The diplomatic relations is a process, or are a process which are built on constantly by on your successors' work and on and adhering to passing it to the successors. So the predecessors, the successors, this is a process. It's a long process.
It's an ongoing process.
It's an ongoing process. You have to take into account what you have gotten, and you have to also pass on what you have done to your successors. This is part of our work.
Well, 2025 will be interesting, to say the least. Hopefully it'll be a year of developments and progress in many areas, as many as possible. Your Excellency, once again, thank you very much for being with us and for this very informative talk.
Thank you very much once again for hosting me, and looking forward to seeing you again.